Hi, this is Eric Martin, Board Game Geek. I'm here with Todd Rowland from AEG, looking at Mariposas by Elizabeth Hargrave, a game in which you control butterflies.
You do. You
swarm of butterfly? Flock? I don't know the proper
generations of butterflies.
Generations of butterflies. Okay.
Yes.
That works out well. So what are we doing in the game? We are traveling, as butterflies often do.
Mm-hmm. You're following the migration pattern of monarch butterflies up the eastern seaboard of the North America.
Okay.
At the beginning of the game, each player has one butterfly that has the number 1 on it to note that it's the generation 1.
Okay.
It's the first ones that are leaving Michoacan, Mexico. Mm-hmm. And when on your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to have 2 cards in your hand that are movement cards.
Right.
You're going to play one and then draw another after that turn. These are all the basic movement cards. So, for instance, if I were to play this card, it would let me move 5 spaces.
And then land somewhere.
Yeah, let's assume I'm orange. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whatever I land on, I collect a token of that flower.
Okay.
So I'll take the little yellow flower and put it in front of me. The reason that we're collecting the flowers at each place that we stop is that if you notice here on this board, if you have 2 matching flowers or any 3 flowers, you can turn those in if you are adjacent. I'm going to move him over to one of these. Oh, actually, no, I'm not adjacent. I'd be right here. But anyway, if you're adjacent to one of these little caterpillar ones, you could breed your next generation of butterfly.
Okay.
So assume that I did have the 2. I turn them in. I then get to take the generation 2 of my color and place it on the same space.
Okay.
Now, on future turns, if I play a card, for instance, that allows me to move 2 or more butterflies, in fact, this one says I can move 2 butterflies 2 spaces each, I could send this one this way, this one over here, and they would both collect, which would then let me breed future generations.
Right.
You play 4, everybody has 4 action cards to play in the spring. Okay. At the end of the spring, we look at the board and we get some bonus scoring. For instance, in this case, for every butterfly that you have north of Atlanta, right here, anything north of that line that has made it there by the end of that season, you'll get 1 point. You also get 1 point for every butterfly on a red space.
Okay.
And that is cumulative. So if you're on a red space north of Atlanta, you'll get 2 points.
Okay.
And then we move on to the end of the season. So if you have not placed all of your Generation 2 butterflies on the board yet, you for free get to hatch another Generation 2 where your first one is, even if you're not at a breeding ground.
Okay.
And then all your Generation 1 die off and are removed from the board.
Okay.
And then your Generation 2 will continue on.
So we reveal the summer goal.
You reveal the summer special goals.
You have 2 cards. You're going to run through 5 rounds.
5 rounds now instead of 4 rounds.
With more targets to get to.
More targets to get to. And then you'll continue that process into the fall, which is the final one. Reveal it. Everybody will have 6 actions. And at that point, you're going to be getting into your 4th generation.
Okay.
And you want, at that time, to have your 4th generation return to Mexico because you're going to score extra points based on all the 4th generation butterflies that return home.
Okay.
So you may ask, well, why do I want to go so far north if I need to get back? Well, let me tell you, Eric.
Do.
Yes.
Okay.
The reason to go there is that all of your really great rewards are farther north. Okay. You have double spaces that give you double flowers. You have clusters of what we call the way stations, which are the major cities that the butterflies will flock to. So, for instance, if you visit one of the major cities, like Richmond, and when you land there, you flip it over. The butterfly that land there would collect a card matching that symbol, so the seed. You get a blue seed.
And that just stays there, and anyone else
can go there and get that card too. Okay. But the first one to go there also gets to roll this die and gets a flower of the matching type.
Okay.
The reason you're collecting these sets is each card you collect is also worth 1 point at the end of the game, but should you complete an entire color set, you gain a new ability.
Okay.
So in this case, and these will be different every game as well, just like the season abilities will be different every game.
There's multiple cards. We only put out one of each for.
Right. So for instance, the yellow or green one here, you get to take an extra turn at the end of the fall. So if you have that full set, you get 7 actions instead of 6, which can be very important for making that last track home.
Okay.
Different things like that. And then you score up points at the end.
Okay. So you're earning points at the end of each season as well as the final. So you've got competing goals in a way, because of course you want to be east of Houston, but that means you are not back home.
Correct. But one thing to remember too is that in the fall, you're not going to have what we call the removing phase for generation 3.
So you still have the 3rd generation.
3rd generation can still hang around up here. as long as your 4th generation make it home.
Okay.
And get it there to winter down for the season.
Okay. And the points you're scoring are only at the end of each season?
Only at the end of each season. And then at the end of the game, totaling up however many cards you've collected, and then any points you score there.
Okay. All right. What's the player count?
Up to 5. Plays with 5 players. There's different color butterflies for each player, and it plays, with a full complement of 5 players. You're looking at about 50 minutes to an hour.
Okay. Now you've done an interesting marketing program. I guess I don't know if you want to mention this for AEG.
Absolutely,
it's an interesting thing because, of course, there's lots of inventory issues that come into play.
Yes.
With production of games where you produce too few and then it's out for months while you're waiting for a reprint, or there's too many and now you have to eat it.
Exactly. Exactly. It's always a challenge when it comes to producing and publishing games to, forecast the amount you should print. Sometimes you overestimate and you end up sitting on a lot of it. Sometimes you, catch fire and you've underestimated.
Point salad was out of stock almost immediately.
I know, it's
restocks
wild. And the problem is, the longer you're out of stock, the more chance that the excitement might die off. So you don't want to, stock out for too long. So, and plus retailers, as we've talked to, one of their big frustrations is when they get allocated because there's not enough stock and they've placed an order for, say, 20 copies, but they only end up getting 12 because there's just not enough to go around, and they really don't enjoy that. So we came up with a program called the P3, or the Priority Pre-Order Program, which is our attempt to help retailers avoid those allocations at the beginning. So with Mariposas being the next game by Elizabeth Hargrave, we knew that there was going to be a lot of excitement for it. We were very excited about it, and we really enjoy the game.
Well, it's got a great look to it.
Oh, it's so...
At the overview here, I got a preview yesterday talking about it. Yes.
It's really cool. And just to give a little credit, too, I mean, it's actually really accurate to the biology of the butterflies. Right. They actually do breed 3 to 4 generations a year on this single migration.
That they do. Okay.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. But anyway, so we put up the P3 program, which allowed retailers to go to our website and basically tell us how many they wanted for their store, up to a certain amount. We did cap them at a certain number.
Right.
But the store would put in their request, and then we take that information. We adjust our print run to ensure that we are including that amount plus what we would have normally forecast. And then those are set aside at distribution for those stores. Okay. And we put it in their system and say, look, these 30 copies go to Bob and Cindy's games, no matter what, on opening day.
Right.
So that way, for at least what they've ordered through the P3, they're guaranteed to get it.
And I know you're not doing this for every title, but it's certain titles, of course, because it requires a commitment by them 6 months in advance? Or
actually, it requires even more than that. It requires a commitment almost 9 months in advance, which is really not normal in our industry.
But it allows you to adjust the actual production quantity
because
to make that happen.
We have to make this decision before we begin running the press.
Yes.
So that's why it has to happen so early. But to make up for that, we are adjusting our processes to work really hard to be able to get really nice prototypes done, to be able to get videos made so that we can show those to the retailers during the P3 ordering time, that they can see the game and see if it's going to be a good fit for their store much, much earlier than they would normally receive solicitation about games.
Right. It's an interesting program. I mean, it's definitely a way to adapt to the market and try to resolve some of those issues.
That's what we're trying to do, and thankfully we've gotten overwhelmingly good feedback from the retailers here who have thought it was one of the best initiatives they've seen in recent years as far as alleviating some of the issues they run into with stock problems.
All right, thank you very much, Todd, for an overview of the P3 system, for an overview of Mariposas that will debut at the end of July, I believe.
Yes, July 31st. It'll be part of our big game night at Gen Con, and it'll also be a big game night in your local store, so you'll be able to get it in stores the same night as Gen Con if you're not able to attend.
All right, thank you very much, Todd.
Thanks, Eric.